All right. I'm super happy to be here. It's such a dark and moody place. Oh my God, it's like being on a proper stage. And I'm happy every single time I go to a conference because, from my experience, conferences really have the ability to change lives. I know that sounds pompous, but it's quite true, and I'll talk about it a bit in depth today. So today, what I want to talk is about basically solutions to different problems that we have when we try to break into the global market, but also not only our problems, but the problems that those who need us face. So how can we match those two together? And I will first start by like a little bit of an intro about what got me here in the first place. And as the spoiler alert said, I was not a nun. That's not me. I started as a TV child presenter in Moldovan television. That kind of fed my love for everything backstage. Like, I did not really like being on stage and all these like lights and dresses and, like, haha. I really liked what was happening in the backstage, like all that. There was a room where the director was sitting and the voice was projected into the whole TV auditorium, and I really liked it. It felt like God is talking to me. So I was like, I really want to be that person who's like telling, a whole crew what to do and knows what the jam is. So I decided to go and do filmmaking studies, and that's me at university. I have a background in cinematography and editing. And I really liked it because it's like more hardcore and more punk and more dusty and a bit more, just like heavy. And I'm pretty familiar to what it's like to wake up at like 3 a.m., set up the location before sunrise, grab like a 15-minute nap before the talent arrives. Um, I don't know, like going into odd places because I'm tiny, and like other people are like, "Hey, we need like a cinematographer to go into like a tiny place and grab this amazing shot." I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it." Obviously, this was all like student productions. I did not know if I want to do that in the future, but we were taking like it like proper seriously, like more serious than some even agencies I think do nowadays, because we had like that stamina and that energy and that enthusiasm about it. I got out of university and I became a post production runner, which basically means I learn what people like to drink, how they want to drink their coffees and teas. That's like the main skill that I had to learn. And I was running around with like teas and coffees for people. And I was looking at what they do, and I was looking at all these producers and executives and how they were like super careful about all the details, and they were polishing the edits. I was working in a reality TV show, and every single evening there was a new episode that they were pushing out to live TV, and I was like, okay, but you push like something every single day, so how much like double checks can there be? Plenty, and I really loved that. I really loved being part of a team that was so diligent and so careful to all the details. And I was looking up to that. I'm like, oh, one day I will like stay in this team and I'll grow and I'll be a producer myself. And one day I just had my visa expired, so I had to go back home. And I went back home, and I suddenly got pushed to the role of the producer. And I'm like, how did that happen? Like 2 weeks ago, I was a post production runner giving like teas and coffees to people. And then I go back home to Moldova, and I'm like a producer of two television shows at like the biggest music TV channel. And I was like, wow, this is an amazing opportunity. I know what to do. I've been bringing these people coffees. I totally know what I got to do. So I had this sudden like authority and super crazy responsibility. I was working with local celebrities. I had like the first and the final say in everything that is connected to those shows. Something that would never have happened in a 2 week span back in London, where I did the runner experience. And I was also editing flawlessly every single piece that was going out on TV, until I realized that nobody really cared. Like, nobody really cared who's doing these things, and that was scary for me. I was like, wow, it's not the same level of attention to detail. It's not. It kind of like in this small market, the attention to detail seems to be smaller, and also all this effort that I was putting in didn't have really a reward. So what that did to me, and I felt it, that relaxed me. I kind of gave in. I started caring less. I started like losing the muscle. So I was like, okay, I gotta get out of here. So I was thinking, okay, let's see what's happening beyond the opportunities of local markets. Let's hope I click only once. Yes. So I became part of the Eurovision team from Moldova in 2017, in 2014. My aunt happens to be a singer, and I wrote the lyrics for that song. And I don't know, maybe in Serbia it's similar, but because there's not a lot of money for the delegation, the lyricist also had to be the PR manager of the artist. So I ended up being the PR manager of the artist, and we went to Eurovision, and we had a lot of fun. It felt awesome. It felt powerful. I was like, yeah, look at me. I'm like super cool. Like cut my hair. I get all this like everyone cared around me. I was looking at the graphics team. They were amazing. The directing team, amazing. Like I was like, wow, yeah, yeah, yeah. This is what I want. I want these people who like care about all that detail and have that, like production, like stamina every single day. We did not win. We didn't even like get into the finals, but never mind. Like it was still like a step up. I was in like in a different environment, and that kind of fed into what I loved. By that time, I became more engaged with the music scene in Moldova. And I don't know if you know that the Grandma from in 2005, Dobrze Zdup from Moldova. There was the first band that ended up going to Eurovision. I became part of their gang. We were like doing all sorts of like creative brainstormings, and I was saying yes to everything. I even ended up going on stage with the guy. I was not singing in this band, but he was like, "Hey, we need someone to come on stage with us." I'm like, "Yeah, sure, I'll do it." I was up for anything, really. If you remember these hats, they also had them at Eurovision in 2011, I think. So yeah, I was a very like yes girl because I had no idea what I really wanted to do, but everything seemed interesting, and I always wanted to find that sort of like niche where people would care a lot about the job that they do, and it would feel like you're part of like something bigger. Um, I ended up in the meantime singing. I was singing ever since I was a kid, and I'm still in this jazz band every now and then. It's just a hobby, but people back home actually think that I am a day-to-day singer. That's only because when you're on stage and you're like singing, you get these pretty pictures, and that's the only thing I post online. I used to post online because like ooh, fancy camera, like bokeh, super cool. So that's why like people back home, even my relatives, they think, oh, you're a singer. I'm like, that's not exactly how I make my living, but okay, I'll just go to more conferences and maybe that changes people's minds. But what I actually do, which is like pixels and spreadsheets and stuff. And I realized that at some point I was bothered by the fact that people don't really understand what I do, but then I thought that's such a great win because I can do anything and no one will be like surprised. So that gives me like a wider range of things that I could engage in. So I decided to go into documentary filmmaking, which is a very female-dominated industry, as you can see clearly in this photo. That's our team, amazing team, amazing team. No comments about them. They're super cool. Um, and yeah, I really like that change from like being the cutie artist with like fake eyelashes on stage to like going into like this sort of like sweaty production with like again like a punk atmosphere and filming in the rain and having no budgets and sleeping with the crew and in hostels and like crazy awesome, love it. This film that we did ended up being like a feature documentary film. Here's a QR code in case you want to watch it. It's for free because we don't have money for promotion, so we decided let's just put it out there free because nobody will pay for it anyway. So this is a feature documentary travel film about folk music in Moldova and in Romania. It won several awards, so if you're interested, save this one. So of course, I would not be me if I wouldn't jump again to a completely different profession. So I was at some point after I won a couple awards with that film. I was called by the university where I studied in London. They were like, "Hey, we have like this production like workshop that we want to share with our students. Would you be interested in like handling it?" I'm like, "Sure. What do I need to do?" They're like, "Whatever you want to do." And I'm like, "Oh, that was a lot of pressure." So I ended up teaching like production for short form content back in my university, which felt like so huge because I'm a teacher now. But they're like, "No, no, no, you cannot use the word teacher." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." But I'm teaching people. No, 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 just say you're like a coach or something. I don't know. But anyway, it was amazing. I was back in this land of like cables and dust and sandboxes and whatnot. And again, what I really loved here was that the students are now ruthless. Like you cannot bullshit students because then they catch you and they're like, "What am I paying my money for?" So I loved that new responsibility. Again, it stepped me up. I was jumping to like a new level. I was learning new things. I was super afraid of everything that was happening, but I felt like I'm becoming better with every single session. Which brings me to 2017, when I went to a conference in Moldova. It was called Collider, and there I met Tim Thompson and Joel Pilger, who have the session after this one. They're part of the RevThink. They're founders of the RevThink consultancy, the leading consultants for creative entrepreneurs in the US. So they came to Moldova. And at some point, Tim said, "Hey, I'm the co-founder of Imaginary Forces." And I was in the audience, just like you, and I was like, and everybody looked at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, oops. But then Tim remembered that, and he was like, "Hey, so you know Imaginary Forces?" I'm like, "Of course I know Imaginary Forces. Legendary studio. What are we talking about? Of course I do." He was like, "Let's talk more about that." Because like, I think I was the only one reacting to that name. And he was like, "Oh, you also kind of like speak English nicely, so maybe you should like figure out a way to connect Moldovan artists with US artists." I'm like, "I don't know what you're talking about." He's like, "I saw a lot of talent here, and it sounds like you guys don't have like enough confidence, or something is lacking, and you're not yet on the American market. So go figure out like a way to connect Moldovan talents with US studios." I'm like, "That's great. That's easy to say. I have so many things now. I have like zero cash because I was in this animation studio, which was delayed 3 months, was delaying 3 months of salary to me. I had zero transatlantic connections, really. I have never been to the US up to today, by the way. And I was like, what do I have? Well, actually, I do have a couple of things. I have now Tim and Joel. I know them because they're right here in Moldova next to me at this conference in 2017. So I know two people from the US. That's already some sort of transatlantic connections. I know I have some sort of good English, and I know all the local talents because, the industry in Moldova is pretty small. So I kind of ended up knowing everyone while working in that animation studio. And another thing which I had is like I really wanted to do it. I was like, yeah, sure, let's see what it means to bridge Moldova artists with US studios. And I had one more thing, which I think is so uncanny. Okay, this is this. I would love this to be Barcelona, but it's not. This is Chisinau, my hometown. And if you look at this building over here, that's the hotel where everybody from the conference was staying. And in this block of flats here, I was renting a flat. That was like a complete coincidence. And every day after the conference was a 3-day conference. Every day after the conference, we would walk together they would walk to the hotel and I would walk to my flat. And in those short walks, we ended up bonding. We ended up talking about how things are going in Moldova versus how things function in the US. And in those walks back to the hotel from the conference, I met Rob Wagner, which is one of the people who I work with till today. And he said, "Hey, so I saw at this conference, I really liked like 5 studios from Moldova. So I think I need like someone here to just talk to them and see like, I don't know, do they have good internet? Like, can they deliver? Just someone to be on the ground, like an assistant or like an agent for us, just someone who we can send emails to and just get one email back, not 5 from different studios." And I was like, "Sure, yeah, I might know someone." He's like, "No, do you want to do it?" I'm like, "Yes, of course," because I was saying yes to all the other things before that, so why not say yes to this one? And he was like, "Okay, good, great." And the next day, he's like posting Chisinau, Moldova to his website as like the second office that he has. I'm like, "Well, how did that happen?" He was still at the conference. I'm like, "You put Moldova as the second office?" He's like, "Yeah, I like to make things happen." And I really loved that attitude that I saw. I never met that kind of attitude back home. It was just like, you just do it, like just move fast, whatever. At the same conference a couple of years later, I met Marcel Ziul from State Design, which is a top animation studio in the US. And I was also telling him like, "Hey, we have like artists, but maybe they're not as cool as you need. Like, what can we do?" And then, the day after, he emailed me like, "Hey, Lidia, like, tell me more about your artists. Maybe we can get them as like juniors first, and like, maybe we can fly them to LA. Just whatever. Tell me what to do, and because we really want to do it." And I thought that they're oversaturated with talent, and that's absolutely not true. And especially because one of the main problems that US studios face is the lack of talent. Even though it sounds like there's a deep pool of talent in the US, that's not right. They're all either busy or surfing or I don't know. There's always a need for new talent, for sure. So what I learned from this whole experience is a formula that, again, this is like a RevThink formula, which is needs plus resources equals solution. We have some needs, like we want to work on bigger projects with like better budgets, and the studios all over the world, they have their needs. They want to try to work with new artists. They want to find, like reliable partners. They want to have a sense of discovery. They want to have a sense of, helping emerging industries grow. And, they also want a new pool of talent, or at least to know that there's expanding opportunities for the new talent. So I've been doing this for like a while now, and I noticed that the main ultimate goal for everybody is to make life easier. That's the ultimate goal for everybody. And there's this big thing in the US, like how do we minimize the suffering that we go through in our work? And there's two phenomena happening right now in the US. One is called the Great Resignation, which is when people decide what they want to do and what they don't want to do, and that's causing a lot of problems talent-wise. Talents are asking for crazy rates. Availabilities are unstable or hard to get. They're pretty scarce. And the second phenomenon is so-called quiet quitting, which is when people come to work, they do the bare minimum, and that's all. Like there's no like extra mile. And it's weird because I noticed it happening specifically with like the younger generations, like with people who get like their first jobs. And there's that sort of enthusiasm kind of missing. And they don't do what they don't want to do. They just keep their jobs, but they don't do them excellently. So to make the best out of kind of like this situation and try to minimize the suffering that everybody goes through at work, Rob, who was the hey, I like 5 studios guy, he wrote a book, which I happened to be, for some reason, the executive editor on. You can save this one again, because it's a really cool book. So the simulated method is basically a solution to make creative work as painless as possible. We tried to minimize all project management processes specifically for outsourcing work, specifically when producers from all over the world work with talent from all over the world. So this method is really helping. It's really nicely designed as well, made in Moldova. It really puts like some step-by-step instructions on how to cut through the chase. Because when we want to work with someone who we don't know personally or who is not in the same office with us, we go through crazy processes, like we negotiate rates, we set up calls, we have all sorts of negotiating availabilities. That takes so much time before even getting to the actual work. And this is just making the production life harder. And things that make us stressful, they lead to, I don't know, unhappiness, and we're all just trying to do our jobs and live good lives. And you cannot live a good life by doing everything the hard way. That's just not how it works. So speaking of works, this method pushed us to create also a platform, which one of my goals is to get to meet you. If there's any artists specifically in the room, I'd love to like catch up with you after these sessions. This platform is basically a platform where we post a lot of the existing jobs, and when you have time from your usual jobs or when you have any sort of like free time, you can just log in. All the briefs are in there, all the budget is there. There's no need for any negotiation. The deadline is like dead clear. And you just like click a button, we see that you want to work with us, and we get you working like the minute, like in an hour. So there's no need for all the ping pong. The contract is embedded in there. You just e-sign it digitally. Super simple. Just really trying to make it in a way that workflow diminishes from being a big problem, because it is the biggest problem, I guess, with working with people from different countries is synchronizing the workflow. And most of the outsourcing and managing external artists and creative agencies, most of that is usually inefficient, costly, and exhausting, to be honest. And yeah, again, from starting to schedule a call to everything. So if we end up working together, we might find you on this platform. It's free. It's like you don't need to pay anything. We just got to see your portfolio and see what kind of like type of work you would be best for. And again, what this does is it makes the process easier. And I learned it the hard way in the last couple of years that process is absolutely everything. You can have the most beautiful render, the preview that you send, like, I don't know, half resolution, it can be beautiful. But if the final files that you send are like corrupt or some like layers are missing, if the comping team on our end cannot put them together, all that render, like beautiful render preview, just goes to garbage because it cannot be used instead of the final files. And for me, that was very hard to accept because I kept trying to convince Rob and the assistants, hey, but this piano that is like shattering, it looks so beautiful in the preview. Never mind that the render has like a lot of corrupt files. He's like, no, 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 listen to me. We take this job, we throw it away, we do it from scratch. And, because back home in Moldova, everything you needed in a final file is a pretty render, which is like .mov, and that's it. But not with bigger productions, not when you need to deliver your actual, I don't know, PNG sequence, or when you need to deliver actual project files. And, yeah, again, what I learned here is that enduring worse creative, no, let's not say worse creative, but enduring like less better creative is way easier than suffering for the process, because that loses time and money for everybody. And speaking of money, I'm super curious again to talk about after these sessions about the way you negotiate your rates and how you get paid. And what I learned from the US experience is that there's two systems of negotiating rates and calling up your price. One is the value-based proposition, which is when you just receive the brief and you tell a fixed rate for the work that you want to do, which is the value that you're going to deliver, or the day rate. And I don't know if you work with day rates. I am really not a fan of day rates because, in that case, there's no incentive to do things faster and be more productive because, the more we work on this project, the more money we get on these day rates. However, when they decide who to work with, that artist needs to have two pieces of information, like mandatory. One is what is the day rate, and the second one is what is the availability in the upcoming days or weeks. And if one artist starts saying, oh, but I don't have a day rate and I negotiate like a fixed price, let's have a Zoom call and discuss the brief. And then the studio has no time for an extra Zoom call. And even though this is a great, great artist, they end up choosing someone who has those two informations straight away. But then again, remember, I don't encourage day rates. So my advice into how to negotiate the payment that you would get from a studio when you want to work with them is to tell them, hey, I don't usually do day rates. I work on a fixed fee, but just to give you like an idea of where the fixed fee would end based on your production schedule, I usually work on a day rate of around, I don't know, 500 or 600 euros, or if you work with US studios, tell a US price, USD, like dollar price straight away. So for example, I don't work with a day rate, but the fixed fee based on how many days you want to book me for will be around the ballpark of approximately, let's say, $500 or $600. So don't let them use that against you. Still come up with a fixed price afterwards, but let them know approximately where you land to. Because I noticed that for design and animation, for 2D mostly, there is several tiers. For example, everybody who charges up to $300 per day, or the other tier, everybody who charges to $550 per day. So they would at least need to know where you fall into to understand if you would be a good fit financially purely for this project. And if you don't get that answer to them, and if you just say, let's have a Zoom call, then this conversation would drag on infinitely, and chances are that you would not get on that project. Not because you're not good, just because someone else gave faster answers and it was easier for producers to work with that person, like to get to work faster. One thing I do hate and completely encourage against for is hourly billing. Okay, don't bill by the hour. Everyone is interested in delivering more with less work and less time. So stop charging for your time, like specific, like chunks, little chunks of time. Because when you stop charging for your time, your productivity actually doubles. And if you will bill yourself by the hour and at the same time increase your productivity, then you're losing money. So just please stop trading your time for money. Because, if you have like 10 years, 15 years experience, you might do things faster than others do. And then you would end up making less money than others just because you have that experience that taught you how to make things faster. So yeah, forget hourly billing. No, boom, boom. And ultimately, if you have imposter syndrome like me and start like, I have a really small price at the beginning, then this is a great motivator. Like charge like you're the best and then go be the best. That's a great incentive to, if you put like a higher budget, then you're kind of like, oh my God, I really need to perform up to this budget now. It really works. It sounds like it doesn't, but it really, really works. And another thing that I really wanted to I wish someone told me before I went into this whole like production saga with outsourcing things is the concept of white labeling. It kind of sucks because what it means is you probably know, but for those of you who don't know, white labeling is when you do the work but you cannot show it afterwards. So everything belongs to the studio or to the brand who hired you, and you cannot even mention that you worked on this. You cannot put it on your portfolio. Nothing. It's as if you didn't exist, but you did the work. It's a standard practice, so you cannot go in and say like, I don't do this. I mean, you totally could, but that would minimize your chances, at least at first, to get into like bigger projects. So I totally encourage you to take on white label projects. However, when you negotiate with a studio or a brand or an agency, give them two prices. One if it's white label, and the other one if it's not white label. And then make the difference of approximately, I don't know, like 20 to 25%, depending on how you feel. And worst case scenario, if they tell you, oh no, we need you to be white label and you cannot talk about this work and you cannot put it on your reel, then at least you get extra money, which is great. So do that. I did that and I was happy when they gave me extra money, and I was also happy when they gave me credit. So it kind of like balances things out. And one thing that I also noticed is that when you negotiate with money, you kind of like end up seeing how people behave and how they will behave later in the work. So I identified two types of clients, which are the takers and the givers. At first, when I was just starting, I gave in to the takers, and these are people who, pretty well-known studios in the US, who wanted our hard work for like a tenth of the price. And to be honest, that was doable. Like in Moldova, that was doable. A tenth of the price, still something for us. And we were like, okay, I will take that project. However, I felt and I knew it. I knew they could pay more, but they were just like, oh, we'll just take this low cost project here with people here, and that's it. And I knew that they would have totally paid more to other people for the same work. And that kind of left like a bitter taste in me because they got super highly skilled people working for like the lowest possible price. What that is called is commoditization. So they commoditized us and viewed us a bit of like low value, which did not feel good because soon even our creative opinions got to be like ignored. Yeah. So takers really just want to exploit and they want to take. But the givers, however, the givers are the people who are open to you and they're like, tell me how can I help you to become better. And if it's a US studio, ideally they would give you the available budget, and it wouldn't matter if you're from a tiny country like Moldova or if you are, living in San Francisco. They would have this budget put aside for this specific project, and they would offer you in the exact same equal way. And their incentive to work with you would be because, I don't know, because they like you, because you're a likable person, because there's something in your portfolio that rings the exact bell that they need for the project, or because they need someone to work right while they sleep. There's so many reasons why someone would want to work with someone else. So the givers, I noticed that they're the people who don't try to commoditize something that could be lower cost, but really should not be, because if they have that budget, they still got to use it. And I call this like the laws of giving and receiving. So, in the laws of giving and receiving, the first thing that you would want to say is like, what do you think I'm contributing to the studio? Why did they call me? Like, what am I best at for them? Is it because I have like I'm respond 5 minutes after they send me an email? What is the thing that made them like me? The second one would be to identify when you were at the last time at the losing end of a compromise, and how did that feel? How do you make it in a way that it doesn't repeat again? Make a list of like solid standards. One solid standard that becomes more and more practiced is to define like the minimum viable budget that you would work with. For example, I don't take projects lower than, I don't know, 1K or 2K. Um, prioritize the givers in your client list. So if you work with a studio that is kind of like small, but they really tell you, hey, we have this budget and it's more than you have expected, and then there's this other amazing, super cool, fancy, popular, famous studio, which is like, so can you do it for like a tenth of the price? I know you will want to work with that fancy, popular studio, but that's not a long term solution. That's not viable in the long term because it's the givers that are gonna contribute more to you and your career and that happiness and the stressless work life that you would have. And yeah, cultivate these laws with your workmates. Because remember, your list of services, whatever it is that you do, and whatever service that you do, it's not just a spreadsheet of like billable hours. So let's see what I noticed that helps things go right. One thing is when you're asked for like, hey, how much would it be? Something, something. Try to go back with a proposal, and the proposal is a one page in which you write payment terms, which means, for example, 50% at the beginning before the work commences and 50% after the final approval. The list of deliverables so that you don't have surprises afterwards, like, hey, actually, we need a short version of this. Can you do it for the same price? No, because it was not in the proposal list. And you can also put in here the difference of prices between if it's white label, which means higher price, or if it's non-white label, which means your usual price. Stronger contracts, again, that's super self-explanatory. Get a good lawyer once and then be happy for the rest of your life. Well-managed time zones. Daylight saving time is weird. Some time zones are really weird. Like in India, it's like plus 4.5 hours from here. It's not plus 4, it's not plus 5, it's like and a half. Who would have thought? And when we change the time, the hour, like it goes backwards or forwards by 1 hour, it doesn't go like that for all the globe on the same day. So if you have like multiple Zoom calls to arrange or like shoot to arrange, then make sure that you triple check all the time zones where people are staying. One such an often problem that I noticed in Moldova, and I've spoken to a couple of people in Serbia, and probably it's the same here, is that we can do a lot of great work, but we don't show it in our portfolios. Our reel shows average work, but we know we can do that, smoke effect amazingly, but there's no smoke effect in our reel. So how do we convince people that, you can work on a specific task? And in that case, I recommend doing test tasks. Don't do them for free because, it's your time and it's your need meets their need, so they also need this. But try to put like a symbolic price for the test tasks, but that will give you an understanding of what's it like to work with this studio or brand or agency, and that will give them the chance to like you and want to work with you, like embark on the full project journey together. And another thing that I really love doing is mirroring. The way that works is every creative studio in around the world goes through a process of pitching. That's when they put together like a creative direction, and they want to send, I don't know, like some style frames, for example, or some creative direction for the client before they even win the project, or after they win the project and they want to explore the creative, like the art directions. So if you develop a communication with several studios, then you can tell them, hey, I know we have not worked on anything together yet. Like, I know that we've been talking about working forever. I propose we mirror one of your processes at the moment. So if you're like in a pitch phase with some client, give us the same brief. You're risk free because you will be doing, you still have your in-house team or your usual team to do the main work, but just give us the opportunity to do the same thing, and that will again it will have a daily communication, and then a daily communication you can like each other, and you can see that you can work together, and even if that specific project does not get awarded to you, they will at least know what it's like to work with you, and you will get a sense of what it's like to work with them. And there's one more super tiny but super important thing. Always end your emails with a thank you. I know it sounds like so cheesy and simple. It's incredible how many people are like super passive aggressive in their emails. So just put that thank you out there, make it part of your signature, and things will become smoother. And speaking of things that are not smooth, the things that cause the production to go wrong, obviously. In the world of Zoom, nobody believes, oh, my internet is not working very well today. Please invest in like good internet connection. Policy clash. What does that mean? Different companies have different policies, especially when it comes to money. So, for example, if here, in Moldova, everybody's like, as soon as you finish the project, it's not even approved yet, but as soon as it's finished, the artist is like, hey, so when am I getting paid? But for example, some broadcast networks in the US, they have like a net 90 payment policy, which means that you will get paid 3 months from now. And that's like their standard procedure. And you cannot really negotiate that. So make sure that you know what could clash in the policies between your expectations and what is actually going to happen, just so that doesn't ruin your mojo and mood. Never negotiate after the delivery. If you estimated some things that were not, if you worked on something and then you were like, actually, this took me more time than I initially anticipated, that's on you. It's not on the client. It's on you, because it's a learning curve for you to know that next time you need to add more time or more resources into it. But for the client, that should not be a trouble for them. It obviously depends with like different relationships, and maybe they, of course, if they ask for something that incurs overages, then totally go for that. But try not to be like, I actually worked, like more, so you're lucky to have this final from me. Because that just like creates a bit of like, let's not work with that person again. Holidays. We have 2 Christmases in Moldova. Do you have 2 Christmases? So yes. So you understand what that feels. But like American studios or any other studios, they don't care that we have a day off on January 7th and 6th, or that we have like, the second New Year on January 14th. They don't care about that. So make sure that you either like anticipate the fact that you would not be available in those days, or I do that, but I don't encourage that. I just like work on those holidays. My family hates me, but yeah, don't do that. So just tell people in advance, because they have some holidays as well. It's normal practice in this day and age, but it can cause things to go wrong, because sometimes they need you to deliver something specifically on that second Christmas day. Yeah, again, poorly managed time zones. Same thing. Sometimes hours are weird. Off-sync tech, I think that's a bit more intuitive. If you need to deliver some project files, but you have like some cracked software, please don't do that. The cost of like software is way less than the cost of relationships being ruined. And wrong bank info. I know this sounds super simple. It's like 101. However, I've seen so much money being wasted on wrong transfers. And it's not like you won't get the money afterwards, but if you miss like a specific information and the money went to like the wrong account, or did not get to you at all, and it bounced back to the client's bank, there still is that transfer fee, which the client usually loses. And if that repeats over time, they will be like, oh, this artist is costing us like more on just like bank transfers than the actual work. So again, that attention to detail, it goes a long way. However, all of this is like things that come with experience. But there is one thing that is most scary, and it's the fear. It's the fear of going out there and believing that you could be as good or better than some people who they have worked with for ages, who have these shiny portfolios on Behance. The fear is actually on both sides, because I noticed with my teams in Moldova that we have the fear of not being good enough for a specific project, or embarking on something that is too big for us to even perceive how we're going to fit in that. But also the client. The client fears, like, are these people going to perform? I don't know. Like, they don't have this thing in their portfolios yet. Like, how's it going to work? And this fear, especially on the client side, is fueled by some myths, which I'm working so hard to just bust. For example, is there even talent out there? Is there talent outside of, I don't know, California? Yes, it is, and it's amazing, and it's shiny, and it's undervalued, and it's like it's totally out there, and it's it works when you sleep. So yes, totally, there is a lot of talent out there. Bad English means bad results? Absolutely not, because we're not in the diplomacy language type of job. However, I have this amazing designer who is so talented, and the studio refused to work with him just because he would not understand the English well. And I was trying to help him and be like his English advocate. And that's when he got to actually get the job. So if you feel like your English is not that good and it might lose you some jobs, then either ask someone, I don't know, share a part of your fee with someone to be there and help you phrase, like nice replies and put those thank yous out there in the email, or invest in good courses for English. Again, easy to commoditize. A lot of us still are. That's the pure truth. But let's try to fight together against that. So when we negotiate, let's not bring those hourly numbers. Let's instead give, like a fixed fee. And of course, cultural relevance, especially if the content that you're creating is related to comedy or humor. There obviously are some cultural differences. Um, but if you know that you're going into a project which needs some cultural relevance in it, then go and study and research, or be open about it and say, "Hey, I don't really understand this humor at this moment, but I feel like this would help me like create the game or the design in a specific nice direction. So can you like take 5 minutes on a Zoom call with me and like tell me what it means?" It's absolutely fine. People ask questions all the time. Another thing, which again, this all comes from my personal experience, and I hope it identifies with yours as well. I heard this a lot from artists in Moldova. It's when artists mistrust the client and say, "Hey, that brief sucks. I can totally do it better. I'll do it completely different, completely off the brief, but it will be better according to my standards." That does not work a long way. You can do your personal projects in any way you see fit. But when it comes to client productions, usually that has a long chain of approvals before that went through agencies and agencies and agencies. There's like sometimes half a year of approvals that got to this specific brief that ended up being handed in to you and trusted to you. So I think when you try to solve the client's problems, try to trust that they've gone a long way to give you the best they can from the brief that exists, and it's not up to us to change their business and the way they work and the rules that they have. And what we can do is to opt out and exit a project, but or do a personal version. But it's important to like understand and be focused and responsible and show that you respect and trust that client. Which brings me actually to trust, because that's probably the most important. And sometimes I know when I understood that you can actually ask for overages, and that's when like the client asks for something that was not accounted for from the very beginning, there's a chance for you to jump in and say that will cost more money. And usually that's a bit like that gives you like a sparkly cool feeling. What I learned is that when you help the client to not get into those overages, that's way better and is like building the fundament for a better relationship. I'll show you an example of that because I really like what I'm going to show you. It's how to help clients anticipate overages. This is the text of an email that I sent a while ago. So when, for example, the client asks for last minute changes, I replied, "I really want to help you avoid getting into overages. So I'm fighting like hard, like mad for our teams to nail it on this last final revision. Do you think we can make that happen?" So you put it on dev. "If not, let me know as soon as possible. so I can start working on an estimate for an average. So it sounds, and it's true, that you're trying to make the most to not get out of that budget, to not let that budget spill. And at the same time, it shows the client that they will not just end up with like a crazy bill at the end just because you saw the opportunity to use this in your favor. But it shows you that you're a team in this. And yeah, I always go back to, I like sometimes just copy paste this because these situations happen so many times. So I just like copy paste this because I wrote it once and I really love it. So I decided to share it with you guys as well. And yeah, and this just like, it makes life a bit easier. It's nicer to work when things are stressless and when we're happy in the work that we do. And it really doesn't matter how like big or small we are, because we are all people doing people things. And most often we work with people we like. And it doesn't matter where exactly you're from, because, we're all, compared to the bigger markets, we are small ponds, but we have great talent in these small ponds. And designers, animators, storyboard artists, compositors, we're self-taught, and we're self-taught and disciplined by difficulties, by many social constraints. Like, we are raised in countries where pressure and drama are kind of like grists to our creative mill. And our competitiveness really was initially just generated by the scarcity we faced and still face to date. So I feel like I'm talking for Moldova now because I would need to be here for longer to own this for Serbia as well. So I'm only talking to Moldova, and if you resonated with it, let me know. But I feel like we're so hardworking, but yet we're stuck in a small local market with small opportunities, despite the fact that we have the same skill set as all, the big guys out there. We have the same software. We even have the benefit of being at the crossroads of different cultures. We're multicultural. This is a great combination, and it's so rare. And I've noticed, I put together like some images of work done in Moldova just to show you what happens, and I don't need to show this to you because you do the same, like amazing work, or you want to do the same amazing work. But here's what happens once we get given, those bigger opportunities. For example, we worked on The Social Dilemma, and we gained the trust of creative studios who work on these, like some of the world's most impactful productions. Then, we dive in like kids. We explore new tech. This, for example, is the first Moldovan VR film, and which won several prestigious awards, and it used groundbreaking animation techniques for that time. It was about 4 years ago. And we do that in spite of all the difficulties that we face, in spite of the fact that nobody gave a budget for this film. It was just like someone's desire to do things and show to the world that there is that talent over here. And we also, we got the opportunity to work on some broadcast projects, and we proved that we are agile enough and we can work fast and under pressure in the fast-paced environment of American live TV, which is a crazy environment, especially right before going live. And we are, I don't know, we're competitive. We really are on projects for big brands. We tame that fear, and that's the most important. We tame that fear that we had, and we reach out and play the game of the bigger brands. We also, we try to do things that others don't dare to do, and we pioneer in some R&D work. We try to confront the limitations of, the rendering and ultra higher resolutions for like long form content. And again, we also like have that kind of drive and energy that is needed for, the post-production world of stunning visual effects. And I showed this to someone in Moldova, and they're like, "What? You did that here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, we have people. What? How do they feed families?" I'm like, it's an industry. Just you gotta just communicate with people and get to know them and go to conferences and meet people to create new collaborations. And are some samples from a Bold Fest. It's a conference that is happening on the 7th and 8th of October in Moldova. So if you're looking for an excuse to go to Moldova, not like anybody ever did, but if you're looking for an excuse to go anywhere on the 7th and 8th of October, I recommend you to go to Bold Fest. It's absolutely a stunning festival. The people over there are so hungry for collaborations. If you do visual effects, if you know people who want to show their stuff on bigger screens, definitely go to Boldfest because it's amazing. And yeah, and long story short, this beautiful image was created by a social media marketing tiny agency in Moldova. And they did this, and they had no idea they can do it. I had no idea they can do it. They had no idea they can do it. Now their whole capabilities are up. And it's amazing how we can discover new talents that we have hidden in our small ponds by being exposed to higher demands, to more interesting brief. And what that does is that we finally grow beyond, the limits of our local opportunities. We get, inspired, and we want to make it good, and we want to make the best out of every single opportunity. And which leads me to this, and it's you can teach anyone anything, but you cannot teach desire. That's a brilliant quote from Marcel, who keeps wanting to work with people all around the world. He's so open. Send him, I find new talent for him, so send me your portfolios and I'll make sure he sees them. Because, people with desire are kind of like our best asset. And I hope I speak for Serbia here as well, that we're kind of niche. All of Eastern Europe is still kind of niche, but we have that, like desire, and we're ready to go all in and go like punk mode on it. And the truth is that we're really not going to stay niche for long, which is amazing. And for those, like, I don't know, investors out there that are out in the world, they know that. They know that when good products get made in places that are still niche, that's a great time to invest, to create new collaborations and network and create relationships. So what do you do next? It's easy. Make sure that you put yourself out there. I don't know if there's this equivalent of this saying. In Russian, it's "sapozhnik bez sapog," which is like a shoemaker without shoes, which is basically like a content creator or a video creator without a video that showcases, his or her or their work. So please make sure you make yourself easy to find. Be on Behance, be on Instagram, be on LinkedIn. You think sometimes that people don't search for you unless they see you featured in like Motionographer or something, but it's not right. Like I personally search for people all the time, and sometimes I search by location. Put your country out there. Make sure that you're easy to find for people who might need what you have. Um, Please only show your best work. If you have like 10 videos, but 5 of them are so, don't even put them out there. Just be your own like filter. Less work, but looking amazing is better for to be convincing and show that that you can like filter your own work and have like critique over your own work. And ultimately, what else can you do next? This is a concept from RevThink. Definitely travel. Travel a lot, because meeting people in person creates like a deeper connectivity, a deeper connection faster. For example, Milica here, the organizer, and I connected, several times over Zoom. We were like, whatever, just another person on Zoom. I was like that for her. She was like that for me. Yesterday, we had like we were at a dinner, and we completely bonded over how fast we replied to emails. It's the kind of like a tiny thing which would not have happened out of the real personal life. And, if you travel, I don't know, let's say 1,000 miles to a specific conference, but then you sit in a hotel all the day, or just you like walk around the city all day instead of being part of that conference vibe, then that's not going to work. So I totally recommend going to conferences and taking the most out of that. Another thing that you can do is to join an international community. There's plenty out there specifically related to your field. For example, RevThink have their own community. I don't know, like Chris Doe with The Future has his own community. There's, who else? Blairens has this whole community about how to price creative services. Lots of people. If you need some names, find me after this, and I will tell you some names depending on what you like. But it's important to be part of this international community, because I saw how small studios communicate with big studios on the same level. Everybody has the same problems. Really, there is no cheat code. Everybody has the absolute same problems, and it's so soothing to see that the bigger guys out there have like the same issues, and we can like talk about how did you solve that, or how did they solve that. It's amazing. And most importantly, I guess, is join forces with the neighbors. I mean, Moldova is not exactly a neighbor, but I was approached by a studio in London. They were like, "Hey, so tell me more about Eastern Europe. Like, what do you guys do there? What kind of could you do like this project?" And I was like, I really want to say yes, but I know that I don't have enough artists to do this project. And if we connect here now, then the next time I talk to them, I would be like, yeah, because I know that studio in Serbia who can join, this studio in Moldova. We join forces and we do this amazing project together with you guys. Or when you get an interesting project that you think it's a bit like too much for the capabilities that you have at the moment, then like you call me and we're like we're figuring it out. If there's a need that came to you specifically, if someone asked you about a specific brief or a need, then it's such a great thing to be able to take that. Then we'll figure it out. But take it, and to be able to have that confidence that you can take that project, it's great to know that you have some peers here and there, also in Eastern Europe, and we can, become a powerhouse together. I totally, totally believe in that. I'm not exactly like a governmental policy thingy person, but I do know that recently we have this 30% cash rebate for projects that are done in co-production with Moldova. So if any of you are like numbers people, I don't fully understand what this means, but people from the cinema group in Moldova, they asked me, "Hey, can you please tell this? Because this like sparks, collaboration." So I'm like, "There you go, 30% cash rebate." They also asked me to show this, but I actually think there's a lot of value in this information because I think compared to other countries which also have cash rebate or tax rebate even, then to get for cash rebates to function, sometimes there's usually like bigger budgets involved, and you cannot really do that on smaller projects. However, with Moldova, you can do it with like on like an animated spot or like something that is not exactly like a full feature film A-list. So yeah, this is a great advantage that we can also get those governmental money back based on smaller projects that we collaborate on. Oh yeah, and if you want to like open a company in Moldova, we have like a way to an official way. I'm not saying like a way, like an official way to have 7% income tax. That's it, just like 7%. That's all you gotta pay. So if you're interested in that, I can tell you what that means in more detail. So basically, we're trying to like, let's have collaborations because we're tiny and we're not going to be able to do everything by ourselves. So we're trying to like create good conditions and opportunities to be interested, to be interesting for like like globally, but mainly to people who are right next to us and who knows what it feels like to be like not in California. To sum up. I'm close to my final slide. To sum up, I want to recommend you a book, which is something I do every time I speak to an audience. This book has reminded me that a lot of times we want to start something, but we stop. So that's how we start. We start by stopping, basically. And it's that fear that does it to us. And yes, most of the times are really uncertain. There's a lot of change, will definitely happen. But how you spend your time looking for what you want is really the most important, and we all do it differently. We all react differently. But this was an enlightening story. No spoiler alert. I'm good at that. No spoiler alert. It helped me find my indecisiveness at some points in my life, and I highly recommend it to you guys. And this is the motto I live by: live your best creative work life. And I hope we hear more of each other's interesting stories. That's it. Thank you.